You think I'm brave because I carry a gun? Well, your fathers are much braver because they carry responsibility. For you, your brothers, your sisters, and your mothers.
Charles Bronson, the tough guy of Hollywood, a king of classic films, and a seriously famous actor in the 90s, might have confirmed rumors about his life and career before he succumbed to death. What mysteries of Bronson's life needed to be revealed? Did he hide matters from his fans and family? It's time to find out never-heard facts about the late legendary Charles Bronson. The humbling roots. Bronson lived a normal life. If there was something dark about his story, it was his humble beginnings before becoming big in Hollywood. And that's it. He was always open about this simple and humbling part of his life. Charles Bronson's story is one of grit, determination, and a whole lot of stubbornness. Born Charles Dennis Bukinski into a working-class family, he didn't have a silver spoon in his mouth. Instead, he grew up in a tough neighborhood, learning early on that life wasn't about handouts. It was about hard work. Before Hollywood even knew his name, Bronson was no stranger to the grind, working jobs that many of us would rather forget than talk about at dinner parties. When he first stepped into the world of acting, Bronson wasn't an overnight sensation. In fact, his early roles were often small and overlooked, and he had to slog through a bunch of part-time gigs that didn't exactly scream future action star. The guy wasn't immediately embraced by the glitz and glamour of Tinseltown, but instead of getting discouraged, he kept at it, slowly carving out a niche for himself as the guy who could play the tough, silent type with unmatched intensity. There were times in his career when big breaks seemed just out of reach. Not so easy to believe, right? Studios often doubted whether the real-life roughneck Bronson could carry a major role. And yes, he even turned down a few roles that didn't quite match his style or seemed too off-brand for the image he'd built over the years. Bronson wasn't about to jump on any bandwagon. He wanted roles that felt authentic, that resonated with the no-nonsense, hard-edged persona he'd come to be known for. That sometimes meant saying no to a few opportunities that might have seemed like career boosters to others. It was this unwavering commitment to his own identity and a refusal to compromise on quality that helped him transition from modest beginnings to becoming one of Hollywood's most iconic tough guys. His journey reminds us that success isn't always about flashy openings or instant stardom. It's often a long, winding road filled with setbacks, tough choices, and the determination to stay true to yourself no matter what. For Bronson, he was never secretive of this part of his story, even until his deathbed. Life and the war. Charles Bronson's early life and how it shaped the man he became. He was born in Ehrenfeld, Pennsylvania, a tiny coal mining town tucked into the Allegheny Mountains just north of Johnstown. Imagine being the 11th out of 15 kids in a bustling Roman Catholic family with deep Lithuanian roots. The family's living situation was pretty rough. They even had to take turns sleeping in shifts in a cold water shack, right by the tracks where coal cars chugged out of the mine. His dad, Walter Bukinski, hailed from Druskininkai in southern Lithuania and was a Lipka Tatar, while his mom, Mary Valinsky, was born right in the coal region of Tamaqua, Pennsylvania, though her parents were from Lithuania. It was a multicultural mix that set the stage for Bronson's unique identity. At home, English wasn't spoken at all, just like many first-generation American families. Bronson later recalled that his accent was so thick, even during his time as a soldier, that his comrades sometimes assumed he was a foreigner. On top of English, he could also speak Lithuanian and Russian, a nod to his heritage. Bronson wasn't always close with his dad. In a 1973 interview, he admitted he never really knew him well and wasn't sure if he felt love or resentment. He remembered that whenever his mother announced his father was coming home, the kids would scatter and hide. When his father died of cancer in 1933, Bronson had to start working in the coal mines. He began in the mining office and eventually worked down in the actual mine. He even joked that he earned $1 for every ton of coal he mined, and sometimes had to work double shifts just to pull in about $1 a week. He and his brother often took on the dangerous job of clearing out stumps between the mines, a task so risky that cave-ins were a common hazard. The Great Depression hit the family hard, and Bronson remembers going hungry many times. His mom couldn't even afford milk for his little sister, so she would feed her warm tea instead. There were even days when Bronson had to wear his older sister's dress to school because there just weren't enough clothes to go around. Despite all these hardships, he managed to be the first in his family to graduate from high school, a real milestone. Eventually, Bronson left the mines behind and enlisted in the United States Army Air Forces in 1943 during World War II. He served first in the 760th Flexible Gunnery Training Squadron and later as a B-29 Super Fortress aerial gunner with the Guam-based 61st Bombardment Squadron of the 39th Bombardment Group. His missions took him over Japan during combat, and he flew 25 missions in total. His service earned him a Purple Heart after he was wounded in battle. All of these early experiences, from the harsh realities of mining life to the perils of war, played a huge part in shaping Bronson's tough, no-nonsense persona that we remember so well on screen. Still, Bronson was criticized. Charles Bronson was one of those actors you either loved or you didn't, and there's no denying that he left a mark as the ultimate tough guy on screen. But if you dig a little deeper, you'll find that his style wasn't without its fair share of criticisms and debates. For starters, Bronson was the master of minimalism. His characters didn't speak much, relying more on a hard stare and a steely expression than on dialogue. While many fans found this cool and mysterious, some critics argued that it often made his performances feel one-dimensional. They felt that his on-screen silence could sometimes come off as a lack of depth, turning his roles into more of a physical presence than a fully fleshed-out character. Then there's the issue of typecasting. Bronson's career was pretty much built around that gruff, no-nonsense persona, and it became hard for him to break out of that mold. Sure, he owned the tough guy image, but critics often pointed out that this limited range meant he missed out on showing more subtle or diverse acting chops. It was as if Hollywood had stamped him with a "this guy's only good for action" label, leaving little room for experimentation or growth. On the flip side, it's important to remember that Bronson wasn't trying to be a chameleon. Proof? His fans loved him precisely because he was so reliably tough and understated. In an era when movies could easily rely on over-the-top action sequences and flashy dialogue, his quiet intensity provided a refreshing contrast. His approach made him a sort of anti-hero, a man of few words whose actions spoke volumes. At the end of the day, while some critics might have wished for more emotional range or versatility, Bronson's legacy isn't really about pushing the boundaries of traditional acting. It's about the fact that he embraced his own style completely. He gave us a character who was as much about physicality as he was about an aura of mystery. And that's why he still stands out, decades later. Best Films and Roles: The Magnificent Seven, 1960. Bronson's early work in this classic Western might not have put him center stage, but being part of this ensemble film was a game-changer. The movie itself is a blend of high-stakes action and the timeless spirit of the Wild West, where honor and camaraderie drive every moment. Even in a supporting role, Bronson's steely presence hinted at the persona he'd later come to define, a man of few words who let his actions speak louder than any dialogue. Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968. If there's one film that captures Bronson's essence, it's this Sergio Leone epic. Here, Bronson steps into the shoes of Harmonica, a mysterious drifter whose sparse words contrast sharply with the vast, dusty landscapes of the American frontier. In a world filled with larger-than-life characters, his quiet determination and enigmatic stare left an indelible mark on audiences. The film isn't just a Western. It's a meditation on fate, revenge, and the passage of time, with Bronson's performance anchoring its emotional core. The Mechanic, 1972. Moving into the realm of modern action, The Mechanic showcased Bronson as a hitman with a precise, almost robotic efficiency. In a film that could have easily become a run-of-the-mill action thriller, Bronson's performance brought a deeper layer of intrigue and humanity. His character wasn't just a killer, he was a man bound by a strict personal code, a trait that made every calculated move even more compelling. It's a great example of how Bronson could turn a straightforward role into something fascinating, using his trademark minimalism to great effect. Death Wish, 1974, and its sequels, perhaps the most iconic of his roles, the Death Wish series cemented Bronson's legacy as the ultimate vigilante. In these films, he played Paul Kersey, a man pushed to the brink by urban decay and personal tragedy, who then takes the law into his own hands. The character became a lightning rod for debates about justice, revenge, and morality. But what's undeniable is the raw magnetism Bronson brought to the part. His unyielding gaze and controlled demeanor made Kersey a symbol of defiant retribution. And while the films stirred controversy, they also offered a cathartic experience for audiences seeking a hero who wasn't afraid to walk on the wild side of the law. Hard Times, 1975. In Hard Times, Bronson traded his usual arsenal for bare-knuckle brawls, taking on the gritty world of underground boxing. This film dug into the struggles of life on the margins, portraying a fighter battling not just opponents in the ring, but also the demons of poverty and despair. It was a raw, unfiltered look at human resilience, and Bronson's performance showcased his ability to convey vulnerability and strength simultaneously, proving that even a man known for his stoic exterior had layers worth exploring. Beyond these titles, Bronson's career is peppered with films that, while perhaps not as well known today, helped build the tough guy mythos he became synonymous with. His choices reflected a deep commitment to authenticity. He often turned down roles that didn't align with his on-screen persona or felt too out of character. This unwavering dedication to staying true to himself is a big part of why his films still resonate. There were other actors equally good at the time, but why was Bronson loved and idolized? Charles Bronson's performance in his action films is something you just can't forget. He wasn't your typical chatty, explosive hero. He was the quiet storm that said more with a raised eyebrow or a steely glance than most actors could with a full-on monologue. Bronson brought a raw, almost magnetic intensity to every role. Whether he was playing a vengeful vigilante in Death Wish or a mysterious gunslinger in westerns like Once Upon a Time in the West, his style was all about understatement. There was this unique calmness about him, even in the heat of battle. Instead of shouting lines or showing off wild expressions, he let his eyes do the talking. That minimalism made his characters feel real, like they had weathered more than just a few gunfights in their lifetime. Part of why people love him so much is exactly that, his authenticity. Bronson wasn't trying to be flashy or overly dramatic. He was just being him. His tough, no-nonsense approach resonated with audiences who were tired of the over-the-top action heroes of his time. There was something incredibly appealing about a hero who could handle any situation without breaking a sweat or saying too much. It was like watching someone who truly understood the power of silence and restraint. And let's be honest, his presence on screen was magnetic. Accurate? Even in a room full of action stars, Bronson stood out. His unique blend of grit, mystery, and vulnerability, hidden behind that famously impassive face, made him a fascinating figure. He didn't just play a part, he embodied an idea. Bronson became the symbol of rugged resilience, proving that sometimes less is more. So, why is Charles Bronson still famous and loved today? It's because he brought a kind of realness to his roles that few could match. His performances weren't just about the explosions or the fight scenes, they were about the character behind the action. Dawn of the End. After decades of explosive action scenes and unforgettable tough guy moments, Charles Bronson eventually decided it was time to step away from the spotlight. In his retirement, he wasn't chasing after new movie deals or ramping up for another high-octane role. He was ready to just take it easy. Bronson's later years were pretty low-key, a far cry from the intensity of his earlier work. Known for his private nature, he traded in the flash of the camera for a quieter life. He found comfort in keeping things simple, far removed from the chaos of Hollywood sets. It seems like after years of being the man with the steely gaze and explosive action scenes, he really appreciated the peace and solitude that retirement could offer. He spent his final years mostly out of the public eye, enjoying the kind of privacy he had long guarded. Whether he was relaxing at home or spending time with close friends and family, Bronson embraced a lifestyle that let him unwind from the demands of his career. It was a well-deserved break after a lifetime of hard work and rugged roles. Even though he wasn't making headlines with blockbuster films anymore, Bronson's legacy lived on in every quiet moment he took for himself. A reminder that sometimes stepping back is just as heroic as charging forward. His retirement years might have been far from the excitement of his prime, but they reflected a man who knew when to hang up his boots and enjoy the simple things in life. Breakthroughs and goodwill. Charles Bronson wasn't exactly known for collecting a ton of awards. His career, by design, wasn't about being in the forefront of Hollywood glitter. But that doesn't mean he didn't leave a mark. His fame and legacy weren't really built upon trophies, but rather the unforgettable roles he took on. The tough yet vulnerable characters that resonated with movie lovers from every walk of life. While his name might not pop up at every awards ceremony, Bronson did get some recognition for his work, particularly for his iconic portrayal of vigilantes in series like Death Wish. These roles cemented him as one of Hollywood's most famous action stars, even if the awards weren't always given. Despite the lack of official trophies, Bronson's true rewards came in the form of fans' admiration. And that kind of love can be harder to quantify than any golden statue. When it comes to charity and philanthropy, Bronson was a bit of a mystery. He wasn't one to splash his good deeds out in the public eye. In fact, he was known for being intensely private about his personal life, and even kept his charitable work under wraps for the most part. However, there are stories about how he quietly supported various causes, especially ones close to his heart, like helping out those less fortunate growing up. For someone who spent so much of his life playing tough, silent heroes on screen, it makes sense that he wasn't one to make noise about his personal kindness either. It wasn't about the spotlight for Bronson, it was about doing something meaningful, even if the world didn't always get to see it. In the end, Charles Bronson's legacy isn't tied to awards or headlines, but to the way his roles, and his understated humanity, touched fans. His work went beyond the screen, impacting people's perceptions of strength, resilience, and on the power of silence. And though he may not have been the philanthropic celebrity that hits the newsstands today, his quiet contributions, along with his undeniable mark in film history, have earned him a place that still endures. For 16 seconds, Charles Bronson wasn't exactly a guy who chased after awards or made a big fuss about charity work. But that doesn't mean his contributions went unnoticed. In fact, his legacy in Hollywood has earned him recognition in ways that go far beyond the typical trophy case. While Bronson might not have been a regular at red carpet events or award shows, his influence on action cinema was undeniable. Over the years, he received a handful of honorary awards and lifetime achievement recognitions that celebrated the raw, no-nonsense style he brought to every role. These accolades weren't just about handing out shiny trophies. They were a nod to a man whose on-screen presence helped redefine what it meant to be a tough guy in Hollywood. When it comes to philanthropy, Bronson was even more low-key. True to his private nature, he didn't make a show of his charitable efforts. Instead, he quietly supported causes that were close to his heart. Whether it was giving back to communities or supporting fellow veterans, a nod to his own service during World War II, Bronson believed in helping out without seeking the spotlight. His contributions might not have made headlines, but those who knew him appreciated his genuine desire to do the right thing. Are you or your parents fans of Charles Bronson? Drop your comments below. Till the next video.